Hi everyone, welcome back. This is KrazyBatLady. So Heizou is finally here, and I think he's a ton of fun to play. If you like using Sucrose as a driver, look no further because he's just like Sucrose in that regard, but with a little bit more kick. He plays really well at delivering all your sub DPS's damage and swirling and just going nuts and doing quite a good amount of damage at the same time. So in this video, I'll show you all there is to know. Let's start out with his talents. His basic attack is punchy punchy, kicky kicky. The modifiers aren't incredibly high, but it's definitely enough to get you some good damage. And do take note that my Heizou is very little investment, so he can definitely get better. A lot of his damage is going to come from his elemental skill, which he makes a really big punch AoE attack. And it may be a little bit confusing looking at this at first. You want to build declension stacks, and you want all 4 declension stacks before you use your elemental skill, because holding it just takes way too long. In layman's terms, you want all 4 stacks, and you'll do more damage. That's what all this stuff here is, like your conviction damage. That's when you have 4 stacks of declension damage, 4 times that number, plus the initial number, so it has pretty decent modifiers. And as you can see, holding it just takes way too long, and you'll find yourself in some bad situations. What you want to do is get a constant element on the field. Like here, I put down Kokomi's jellyfish, and every time I swirl, it adds a little stack to that square on the side. Once it's full, you unleash your elemental burst. You don't have to hold it, you just press it, and it'll unleash all 4 stacks. And once you apply element again, you can rebuild those stacks really fast. And if you have a Constellation 1 stack is immediately available. As you can see, it's already ready. And I can punch again. Now his elemental burst. I have mixed feelings on the elemental burst. While I think it's fun, and I think it's really interesting, I don't find it as useful as it sounds. You basically kick a giant vacuum across the room, and it sucks in enemies for a very short time and deals a little bit of damage. It does have an 40 energy cost, though, which isn't bad. If you're wondering how far it is, I'm going all the way to the edge of the Abyss room, and I'm still hitting the enemies from there, which actually seems to be about the max distance, because I tested this in the overworld as well. His first passive talent is what I was talking about earlier, building stacks for your Heartstopper strike. So every time that you swirl, every 0.1 seconds, you will get a declension stack. You pretty much need that for this skill for it to work properly. You want all 4 stacks, and you'll do more damage. Good stuff, good stuff. Alright, so let's go on to the next passive talent. Penetrative Reasoning. Penetrative Reasoning makes it so that you give your party members 80 elemental mastery. That's pretty solid. Every time you use your elemental skill, you'll give your party 80 elemental mastery. Just not elemental mastery for himself, which is unfortunate, but I'll go more in on support role for him later in the video. His last skill is decreased stamina consumption while running. The same skill that Kazuha has, and is incredibly useful for running around because you run a lot in this game, and this is just such a good skill to have. He's fun to have on your team, and he helps you get around. Unfortunately, this doesn't stack with other characters' sprint boost, but that's okay. Now, he's very team reliant, and I mean really team reliant. Like, he's not going to do that great on his own because you won't be able to build up his declension stacks. You need to swirl to get the declension stacks, and that's where most of his damage comes from. So, yeah, kind of not the best on his own. So, typically, the way that you want to play Heizou is kind of like how you would play Sucrose in a Taser team. He's going to be the driver for all of your off-field DPS, like Fischl, Beidou, Yelan, Xingqiu, Xiangling, whoever you're using. The idea is to swirl every single one of those elements so that you get stronger reactions and stronger overall damage with the Viridescent set. And that's definitely his best in slot artifact set. There's not really any comparison on power here. It's great for your team, it's great for him. Just get the 4-piece Viridescent. Even if they're like not that great at pieces, you can look at my pieces, they suck, but you want the 4-piece. If you don't have that, get a 2-piece and a 2-piece attack percentage. But definitely work towards the 4-piece. So there are two ways to go about building him. One I would recommend and one you could technically use. The one I'm going to recommend is going attack percentage and crit rate, crit damage. I find that to be the best way to get the most damage out of him. So you want to use an attack sans. And for substats, you want to get as much crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, and elemental mastery as you can get. Energy recharge doesn't hurt, but since his burst cost is only 40, it's not that important to get a lot of energy recharge on him. For the cup, you want to use Anemo damage. Definitely Anemo damage. And for the circlet, either crit rate or crit damage, whichever you're lacking and need more of. And of course, these artifact pieces that you're seeing here are terrible, and I hope that you can get some better ones than what I have. But, like, look at this one. This one's a real stinker. So, I wish you the best of luck farming for those artifacts. Now, let's take a look at his weapons. So, the Solar Pearl is what I'm rocking, and I love the Solar Pearl. It's worth the $10 or whatever to get the Battle Pass for this weapon for him because it just synergizes so well. You increase elemental skill by using normal, and using normal increases elemental skill and burst damage. So, really good stuff. And not to mention the drip. It looks great on him. An alternative you could use is Dodoko Tails, but this one you have to make sure that you use charge attacks. It can work, but you just have to focus on the charge attacks to get the most damage out of Dodoko Tails. But of course, not everyone's going to have Dodoko Tails, which that is fine because there's lots of other good options. The Mappa Mirror is really easy to get, and this one can work. It does have Elemental Mastery and kind of a meh skill, but it's definitely usable. The Widsith is a great choice. You get that crit damage. The only problem I have with the Widsith is that it's not very consistent. The buffs are random, and if you don't like random buffs, then I would suggest a different one. Now, you could technically use Sacrificial Fragments, but I feel like this one is better on Sucrose, but if you don't have anything else, this is fine. It has a lot of EM, and you can punch a couple times, but again, you need to build up those stacks to punch, so I really don't find this to be that useful overall. And of course, you can use the Hakushin Ring if you're running a taser team. That's a really good option for that. For 5-star weapons, you've got Lost Prayer to the Sacred Wind, because you're going to have a lot of on-field time. So this isn't that bad. This isn't that bad. If you switch off, you'll lose the buff, but it's okay. Of course, you can use the Skyward Atlas or Kagura's Verity. Both are great options. Oh, another 4-star option I forgot to mention is the Blackcliff Agate. That's fine too. If you don't have any of those, a 3-star weapon called the Magic Guide, which pretty much everyone should have this at Refinement 5, is pretty good. It's got Elemental Mastery and increases your damage to enemies affected by Hydro or Electro by 24%. So, not bad an option for a 3-star weapon, I say. Alright, so let's talk about teams for Heizou. My favorite being a taser team. He really shines on a taser team, same way Sucrose would. You can mix and match these characters to your liking. Just make sure you got the off-field damage dealers of Electro and Hydro. And of course, you can go for the old reliable national team, where you can be the driver for Xingqiu and Xiangling. And of course, you can also use him on a freeze team. And he's not bad on a freeze team, I gotta say. I tried it out. Like, I'll show here. Like, this is really good for floor 11 because you're basically a portable freezer and the enemies aren't going to get near it. You just have to be on the enemies and they'll be stuck in place. I'm using Kaya, Xingqiu. I really think he shines with the taser setup. Like, that's definitely my favorite and what I'm going to be building him for in the future. I do definitely plan on investing more. I would say go for his elemental skill and his normal attacks. That's what you should prioritize. The elemental burst is kind of whatever, so leave that one for last. So how would he work as a battery? Well, when you hit with 1 stack, you get 2 particles. 2 and 3 stacks, you get 2 to 3 particles. And then 4 stacks, you're guaranteed 3 particles. That's not bad, per se, because you also give your team 80 elemental mastery. But if you use Sucrose with the full EM build, you will end up getting a lot more. So if you're going to use an Anemo character as a support / battery, I recommend Sucrose over him any day of the week. I don't know, just food for thought on that one. I'm not saying you can't use him as a support, you know, you do you if you don't have Sucrose or whatever, go for Heizou because, you know, you can use the Viridescent, he can shred the resistance, he can give you elemental mastery. I mean, there's definitely worse characters you can run it as a support. Pretty much any Anemo character can be a good support. Alright, so let's talk about his constellations. Starting with his constellation 1. For 5 seconds, when he takes the field, he gets a 15% attack speed bonus, which is super nice. There's not very many forms of attack speed bonuses in the game, so it's really nice to have that. But not only that, you also get 1 stack of declension. And it only can happen once every 10 seconds, so you can't spam it, but really good constellation. Constellation 2 makes it so that your elemental burst, you know, the vacuum, is increased to 1 second. Like, I really didn't notice a difference between having this on and off, so it's kind of meh. Constellation 3 increases your elemental skill damage by 3. Good to have, not like super important. Well, it is kind of important actually. Now, his Constellation 4 is pretty good because you regenerate 9 to 13.5 energy when you release your burst. I believe the explosion counts for every enemy hit, because I haven't noticed any extra explosions. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that you get the total amount of energy for hitting more enemies, because I've only seen 1 explosion when I use the burst. Alright, his Constellation 5 increases the damage of your elemental burst, whatever. And the Constellation 6, this is where it gets interesting. So for every declension stack you have, it'll increase your crit rate by 4%, maxing out at 16%. But this only works for your elemental skill. And if you have 4 stacks, which you always should when you're going to use it, you'll get an extra 32% crit damage. So that's really solid. That is a solid Constellation 6. It's a greedy one. It only works for him, but you will get a bit of damage out of it. So, my thoughts on Heizou. I was pleasantly surprised to see how fun he is to play. When I heard about him and saw his gameplay, I was kind of like, whatever. You know, he has a catalyst, he punches and kicks. That's kind of cool, I guess. But it wasn't until I got him and actually started playing that I was like, oh, he's actually really fun. And he's pretty strong, too. Most likely, going to be a big competition for Sucrose and Taser teams, and he can work in so many different places as well. Really fun character. I highly recommend building him if you got him. And yeah, I hope that you found this helpful or interesting. Please leave a like, subscribe, comment, join the Discord, whatever you feel like doing, and have yourself a wonderful day. Bye.